Hey everyone, welcome back. This is going to be a recount of our previous session of Dungeons and Dragons. So, when we last left our adventurers, they had finally found their way out of the Feywild. They had retrieved Emanuele, the long-lost grandchild of Ida, the old halfling lady who died to the orcs, and escaped. So, they started. I didn't have anything planned as far as like what the portal into the Fey looked like, so I just told them you guys went through this pond and it seems like you appeared inside of a bush and you exit the bush and it seems like you're in like a swampy forest area, like the ground has water on it, but you're definitely in a forest, like the trees and foliage all looks like a forest. You see a mountain in the distance. I had Waldo roll to see like if he could determine where they are, as well as he wanted to know if like he could tell what season it was, and he was able to determine like, oh, you're not too far from Alloy, maybe like 5 miles or like 5 hours worth of walking, and you're also in a warmer weather. Like before, there was frost on the ground in the mornings, and it seems like it's morning right now and there's no frost. So obviously some time has passed. Who knows if it's like a warm week or like a warm front, but definitely some time has passed. Then they all discussed with Emanuele like how he was feeling and giving their condolences for his grandma dying and like what are you going to do next. And I didn't have any of the dialogue planned. I just made everything up on the fly. I knew that he would have felt sad and like good to be home, but also sad at the same time. So I just tried to convey that. I forgot what his voice was, so I talked in third person for him, which is something I really haven't done all campaign. I usually have been talking in voices, but I forgot, so I talked in third person. I felt like it went fine. They made their way back and they decided, okay, who are we going to talk to first? Everyone wanted to go to a different place, and they ended up coming up with just asking a guard for like when is it in the year, and they learned that it is the 5th of after soon, which is the second month. And I told them that when the orcs attacked, it was like the middle of dusk front, which is the last month of the year. So almost 60 days have passed. 2 months have passed since they went to the Fey Realm. So like, dang, we missed a lot. Emanuele said his goodbyes to them as they entered the city, and he gave them 2 sticks of the Ever Tree, which is a very sacred tree in the Elvish country, and told them like, hey, how this works is if you break one of these sticks, it'll immediately teleport you to the other stick. So that was something I had found a long time ago, like an old magic item, and I was like, oh, this is really cool, and it worked with this backstory that I made up for him, so I decided to give him those items. Is it powerful? Yes. I didn't think they'll ever use it? Probably not. I've come to realize that my players like to hoard their magic items. They don't like to tell anyone about what magic items they have. They just want the magic items, which is totally fine by me. I'm just rewarding them for their play, and their adventuring is how they're getting rewards. They haven't shopped to find any, save Tink for making his own with the bag of holding. So they enter and they decide, okay, Enzo really needs to go and speak with his family since he's been gone for 2 months and make sure that they know he's okay. And then the rest of the group was going to go to the Platinum Sanctuary to report on what he's been doing, as well as to pick up his squire Ivan. So we started with them going to Platinum Sanctuary. I had everything written out as far as like what the head acolyte was going to say, his name, and the talking points he had. So this was the reveal where he's going to learn that Ivan is no longer his squire temporarily, and I gave him the letter to read, which I took a lot of time to write. I read it a million times and revised it a bunch of times to make sure it was perfect, and I was really happy with how it worked. I had Olivax read it. I think maybe looking back, I should have read it just so he could have reacted to how it was going, but I felt like this was something that Olivax needed to do. I missed my brother, who's the one who plays Olivax, like reacting, like laughing or thinking it was funny or clever. It was more just like very serious, and everyone else was like also very serious. So I just felt like that was a miss. Like I spent so much time trying to write this clever note and make it like have all of these passive aggressive things on how like, oh, since you're not as capable, we're going to send Ivan to Rickerstone and work with another knight to become more capable, and then send him back to you, and then he'll be yours until you either knight him yourself or assign him to do something else. So I was a little disappointed at that, but I think overall it was well accepted. I just wish it would have been more like of a fun time. I didn't feel like it was like very fun, which is something I've just been trying to remember. Like, we're playing this game to have fun, so if at every step we're not having fun, then let's just make it fun instead. Whatever it takes, change whatever your character's thinking or whatever they're saying, just so it's just more fun, because that's the whole reason why we play. And I felt like that was lost a little bit during this session. But after they heard all of the news, they learned that you're not supposed to worship openly anymore to the Platinum Dragon or to Bahamut, and and other just be silent with your worship, as well as there's a group of people. They're calling it the Great Flight, was like my version of the Exodus, to like go to the promised land or to where there's peace. Since there's no longer peace, there's all turmoil and discord now. So they're going to like the opposite ends. Ethia, which is the biggest port city in the realm, which has like the most defenses, and Perth, which is like a northern city in the Elvish lands where Ragnar influence doesn't go. So that was cool. And then after that, Thadon and Olavex had a discussion about like what they think is going on. Is Thadon happy with how things are? Why is he allowing this to happen, type of thing? And I also got to introduce his new squire, Blasius, who's more informed, who's a very devout follower of Bahamut, even more so than I think Olavex is. He's more lawful and he's more strict. So I'm very excited for their clash. Now you have, instead of a pupil and a master, you basically have a master and a master in training type of thing. So I'm excited to see how that clash will happen. And then we go to Enzo after that, who's talked to his parents. He had 4 ravens from Luna, who is this person who got him into the pact with his patron, and she gave him a bunch of information about what's going on in the world, but it wasn't anything like revealing about their relationship. It was more just like how she's feeling and worried about and what she's observing and what she's doing. And I gave them a plot hook to go to Labelle, since she is in Labelle, as she's traveled from where she lives. So then we went back to the group reuniting, and they were going to go visit Droll. My cousin who plays Tink wasn't really here all session. I don't know what he was doing, but he then like wanted to be healed by the church, and they're like, okay, yes, you can either pay us some gold to heal you because there's material components with doing the spell, it takes diamonds, or you can just rest. This really should fix it with rest. And just so you know, it should. All he needs to do is make a 13 con save and he's good. But since he hasn't rolled above a 13, he's been this for like 4 sessions now in this state. So it's like becoming a big issue when he just can't roll high. So he wanted to try to steal diamonds and he wanted to like go on his own. And it was like a version of the previous time he did this where he wanted to steal some things from a blacksmith. However, he was like really hard to understand. Like the connection was really bad and the timing was just bad. Like he just wanted to go try and steal diamonds and start a fire. And I was like, okay, well, they have like their wares out on the table. And when you start the fire, as you're invisible, like they just pick up all their wares in their blanket and they like hold it because they don't want anything to get damaged. So it just wasn't a good enough distraction since you're trying to start a fire like next to where it's happening. And I think that was just a disconnect between him not being present and wanting to play like without actually, his attention wasn't really there 100%. So I think that was just the disconnect. I don't think there was anything I could have done better. I didn't want to just have him steal it without having any forethought. So after that, Tink went to go rest at the Jolly Dragon while the other group went to go talk to Droll. And I had a lot of things written out for Droll. I honestly thought they would have went to him first, but they did not. So they went to Droll and he asked some questions about the orc attack, like, hey, did you guys put everything away? Because everything was like relatively clean. So they said no. So that was a suspicion for him to check out the lord who owns that place to see like what's going on. Why was it clean? How are you involved with these orcs or the chain Otokef in some way? So that's something he's doing in the background. The group doesn't really know about. And then they told him of what happened to them. Like they found some door, some hidden passage, and it like attacked them in some way. They didn't disclose anything about Fey Realm, or they didn't disclose the Knight of Arcturus sword or where it was on the map. He like pulled out a map and asked if they could point it out, and they refused. So it was like, that's totally fine. We could talk about something else. I really wanted to make Droll be sincere, since the dream of Thadon came true, where he wants to be respected and revered and considered in society. So Droll is trying to basically fulfill that. Like he feels this urge to please Thadon most out of the entire group. Like he wants to make sure he is happy and that whatever wound that he thinks Droll caused is mended. And I struggled a lot during the session to do that, so stay tuned for that. So he then tells the group that the orcs attack the city because they don't use the Chain of Otokef for any protection or in any aspect, and that there's this Black Iron Pact, this figure named Ragnar, who's a count in the south, and he has declared that all religion is abolished. He did this 10 years ago. He made an attack on the capital and was forced back by chromatic dragons. He's now like redeclaring basically, and has revealed revealed more of the Black Iron Pact to the public, and apparently all of the cities, major cities in this continent, the realm, have signed it except for 4. Gargashal, the capital, Alloy, where the players are, Brintaril, which is like the city of knowledge and study, and Ethia, which is like the biggest port city. So those are the only 4 that haven't signed, and those who have not signed are like being attacked and scared into it. And the deal is, if you sign this pact, you no longer have to pay taxes, you're no longer under the Queen's power, and I will protect you, and you do not need to pay any taxes to me. The only thing is you do not worship other gods, and except for me, or things that I proclaim as necessary or valid. So then he's like, Thadon, I really want to make up to you what I did from taking away the 600 gold pieces, and it's been plaguing my mind ever since you guys have disappeared, and here are the 3 options that I've come up with to mend this. And the first option was to buy each of them a horse and then 1 wagon for the group, or the 600 gold pieces that he took, or he would give them a task to do, and if they were able to complete the task first, then he would give them the deed to a old watchtower that had been abandoned for 100 years, with the condition that they try to build it back up, and he will teleport them to any major city. And all the players were like immediately, oh, let's do number 3, that sounds really cool, let's do number 3. And then Thadon was like, wait, let's do like a multiple of these different things. And I think that I would have been okay with this playing Droll. However, it didn't seem like a fair exchange. So the reason why he's doing this is he took 600 gold pieces away because they forced his name to rent horses, which they returned, and dampening his relationship with Alloy Barnes. Then he's trying to make up for giving them the gold back, or something else that he feels is equivalent. But Don was like, no, let's do this. Let's do the 600 gold, and then we'll do this third task as well, except for whoever loses, like whichever group out of us and the Falciere, this other group, doesn't finish their task first, then they have to tend to this place. So they have to stay basically in Alloy, and they have to like tend this. It's their responsibility. He was seeing like the tower as like a responsibility that you couldn't escape, where Droll and I was viewing the tower as like a reward. Like, this is a very valuable tower. Yes, it's run down and been damaged, but with some love and repair, it would be worth like way more than you. So I thought I was thinking like, okay, let's try to get more out of this, so that way everyone wins. Like, we get the 600 gold pieces, and we get the task, no risk of this responsibility of having to tend to the tower. But I think that it was just, and then Droll stopped, and he's just like, look, I'm just trying to mend this damage that I've caused. Is this not enough? Like, is what I'm trying to, are these 3 options not enough for you? And I was just feeling frustrated for Droll, because I felt like they were great options. Like, the 600 gold pieces is great. Like, he found out that you forged his name, which is a crime, and he's willing to just look past it, which is a big deal. Like, the players feel entitled, like, oh, like, we're the heroes of the game, so we should be able to just get away with it because we completed the task faster. It's like, no, there's laws in place, and you're breaking laws where people are punished. And this is like a more archaic age where there's like, you don't just pay a fine when you break the law here. You like serve time, or you have to do like something more arduous. So I just felt like it was not unreasonable for him to want to like change things, but I just felt like it could have been done a different way, like with a different approach, like more of like, because he was just like, hey, let's do this, what do you guys think as the group, instead of like, hey Joel, what do you think about this? Like, can we maybe like try to combine where we get paid and this promise? There wasn't any of that discussion. It was more of just like a tell. And I had Joel say like, I feel like you're trying to take advantage of me in this scenario, like what else can I do? And then he offered to talk privately, but then the rest of the group was just like, why don't we just take this? We talked about it after the session. Like, I totally understand his point of view, but I just feel like, number 1, was it making it more fun? No. Number 2, was it including everyone in the group? No. Number 3, was it unreasonable what he was asking? No. So I just felt like it was like a 15-minute discussion when it should have only taken 2 minutes. I'm not overthinking these things. I'm just like presenting what I think is fun and cool to the players, and then just letting them choose. Obviously, if they're like, oh, well, what if we lose but we still complete the task? They didn't ask that question, so I didn't get to like make something up on the spot with like, oh, well, if you complete the task but you're not first, like, you're still going to get a reward maybe, or like there's something else, or oh, like, I know that these people have lots of gold, so like when you defeat them, you're going to get the gold, and that's like going to be your payment. But like, if something happens and you don't get it, like, yes, there'll be some sort of insurance type of thing. That was never discussed. And there's a lot of things with the NPCs that aren't being explored. Like, they have all these names from things that they've been hearing, maybe about like who's the collector, or who's Jawbreaker Gova, Govok, or who's Ragnar, or what's this Black Iron Pact? Like, can you expound on these things so we have a better understanding? Like, my NPCs in the world, like, people know things. It might not be the most accurate information, but if you've gained the trust of someone, they're going to tell you things to their best knowledge. Like, it might be inaccurate, or it might be like fables that people believe, but it's going to be more than what you have now, as well as the players don't seem to be trusting of any NPC. Like Lisara, for example, was like the most trusting NPC I could possibly make, and they were still so hesitant to divulge information to her. I had to like ask probing questions instead of the players wanting to offer up the knowledge. I don't know why they're not doing that. I don't know what I can do better, I guess, is the better question, to make them more open with me and my NPCs. I've tried to buy and win trust with in different scenarios. So yeah, like for example, Enzo has the Sword of Arcturus, and he did not want to share that he has the sword. I was going to have Droll cast a magic spell. I think I am still going to do that so he could see it, because he has great knowledge on magical artifacts such as this, that he can give information. No, he's not going to try and steal it from him, but he would have caution. Like, don't ever show anyone the sword ever, and only use it very sparingly. Or like, if you're going to use this, people are going to try and like deem you some sort of lord and follow you, so be ready for that type of responsibility type of thing. So I don't know how I'm going to maneuver that, but I'm excited to see what happens next. We left the session with the players leaving Droll and going back to the Jolly Dragon to have dinner with Enzo's parents and maybe chit chat about what they're going to do next and how they're going to approach it. They're also going to meet the Falciere group there, which is my rival party I made for them, who have a similar task. I haven't decided what the task is going to be, but the player's task is to kill or remove or find ways to remove Jawbreaker Govok and find out who this collector is and like the organization of the chain and how to bring it down. So very vague and something that may take them a long time. I'm still debating on how I want to do that. I had another leg of the adventure kind of already planned, but my cousin kind of brought up a point that I've been considering a bunch. I just didn't know how to address. So I ask for feedback every session from my players. I pick 2 or 3 each session. That way I get feedback differently from different people at different times. So the last time I asked for feedback, they're like, hey, like, I don't understand why we went to the Fey Realm. Like, it was fun and all, but like, what was the whole point of us doing that? And there were a lot of reasons for them doing that they're going to find out later. So for example, they found crystals, and they gave one to Droll, and he told them, oh, I have a buyer for these crystals. Potentially he's the tiefling. This also references the dream that Tink had about selling these crystals to a tiefling. The tiefling is Sinclair, who is one of the nobles. However, Sinclair is a shady person, and I will not divulge anymore. Spoilers, if you want to know who Sinclair is. So spoilers, if you're still listening to this. Sinclair is actually not a tiefling. He is a changeling, and he works for Ragnar, and he has been searching for crystals that hover, because Ragnar is trying to make Jarnan, the city that he lives in, be a floating city, a floating fortress. So when they sell this to him, he is going to work out a deal with Droll to basically mine these so they can make that happen. So that's like something in the world that's going to happen because of them. This was really a time for them to get to know each other as the group. So like the beginning stages, as well as the Fey Realm, is not something that is explored a lot. So I wanted to explore that as the DM, especially since I'm in a new world and I was very nervous for like what to do first. I had it planned, if they found the Knight of Arcturus and they removed it, it would be the point of no return, where there was nothing they could do basically except for like digging out the wall to get out of the room. They had to go through the portal. It was basically the price you pay for owning the sword is to go to the Fey Realm and get back home. So that was the price they paid for taking the sword. It was a place for me to get Enzo's character closer to his patron and have some direction, since he has just met with his patron, as well as it was a place it ended up being a great place for Olvax to kind of let loose and like grow as a character, because he's very lawful. Now we do things by the law, but in the Fey Realm, he was letting others take charge and maybe doing things in a different way to get the same results. And it's brought, everyone gets to see Waldo's kindness and basically how it's like grows like a wildfire to make everything a better place. So I have all of these themes that I went down and wrote for all the characters that I've been really trying to hone in on and explain through storytelling. And now that I'm trying to work with going forward, I did realize that I have a lot of villains. Like I made 5 major faction villains villains in my world, and they're always at battle with one another for one reason or another. And I wanted them to like all be a part of the story. However, now that we're 16, 15 sessions in, I'm starting to realize that that's just too many big villains, and I can't expect my players to keep track of all that information. Even if I spell it out perfectly clear, you can always theorize and try to connect dots that aren't actually there. So what I'm doing is I'm scrapping this plan I had with one section with undead, which was bringing an undead person into it, a lich, and I am just keeping it to Ragnar and the chain. And Ragnar will be my overarching thing. There's really no way that they can topple Ragnar at this stage in their adventuring careers. So that's like the long-term goal, as well as the Chain of Orikev has lots of different power things, like lots of lieutenants basically that they can take out and damage and affect, which is something that's more attainable for them. So I'm just condensing it to those two. If they want to travel somewhere else, okay, maybe this thing goes on the back burner, one villain, and we introduce a new shorter villain, and I can just do that. Or like I mentioned at the very beginning of this series, maybe like we just stop it after they kill one of the major lieutenants of the chain, or they kill one of the major followers of Ragnar, and we just stop the campaign there. That's where the story ends itself, and we start a new campaign where they can, maybe see the villains from a different angle, introduce, different villains. So I'm always looking for ways to change things up, but I really don't have any plans as far as what I'm going to do next, how they're going to kill Jawbreaker Govok, or which other villains I'm going to introduce from the Chain of Orikev. I have a lot of cool ones, mainly the Curator, which I'll put up on the screen, or I have a cool dwarf which I'll put up on the screen. I have Oshi the Wild, I have Mind Flayers, I have Beholders, I have a lot of different things that all interconnect in one way or another. So I guess the point is it really doesn't matter which villain I use. I just need to pick one and stick with it, and then just make a cool story that's clear, crisp, and to the point that express these different values for each character. I'm not going to try to force the story for my players, or how the plot is going to happen and how the characters are going to grow and change. That's really up for them. I just have certain themes that I'm trying to get across that I think are cool themes that we can apply to like our human lives and things that we're encountering as parents and family and friends and things like that, and things that the players can live through. So yeah, I'm really excited for the next session. I don't know what they're going to do. I think the plan is going to have the dinner with Enzo's parents. Maybe they'll go talk to Droll a little bit, ask more questions. I really want Tink to meet with Frug to continue that relationship, and then they'll probably get teleported to LaBelle, which is my Vegas carnival style place. I have a lot of cool characters I have drawn up. I'll put some of them on the screen now. It's kind of things to come potentially for them. So stay tuned as they explore LaBelle and find out more of this story in the Chain of Orikev. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Get out of here.